Hi guys, my name is Cassandra Hovell. This is my audience for today. It's going to be Courtney and Jason. So how would you guys feel if your loved one was viciously murdered? For most of us that would answer that, it would be absolute grief. Many people who want justice for those who hurt someone we love. I have researched and attended many meetings, and from those meetings, 75% of the participants hoped for the death penalty for the perpetrators that hoped and killed their family. This could be you or your loved one. Wouldn't you want the proper justice that they deserve? The death penalty could bring that justice. I first became aware of the desperate need of the death penalty about 3 years ago, when I first-handedly saw the effects of my own family suffering from a loss. My cousin was brutally murdered and carelessly tossed onto a ditch. The details were horrific, and as a family, we all sought justice for my cousin. I began research and worked side by side with the lawyers involved in the case in terms of why the death penalty for someone like that is important in keeping our society safe. That is why today, I would like to first discuss why life sentences are not effective in treating heinous criminals, and how I would like to discuss also how the death penalty can benefit more to our society more than just simple giving out life sentences. So let me begin by explaining to you guys how life sentences isn't serving justice for families and societies. Vicious crimes are at an all-time high, especially here in San Francisco. Most of these criminals are given life with a chance of parole. A chance of parole is a chance for them to wander the streets again. California leads the nation in life sentences. That means people who commit any heinous crimes is being put behind bars with a chance of parole. Giving these prisoners a chance of parole after a certain amount of years isn't serving justice to those who were killed. Why should they once be free when they stole another's life? Also, the cost of keeping these prisoners alive is more than what they deserve. According to the Forbes article online, it is 10 times more expensive to keep them alive than to execute them. A report issued by Vera Institute of Justice states that each prisoner is worth $31,000 a year for taxpayers, with the inclined growth of growing a prison population. Why should we keep these prisoners who didn't have any care for the life that they took to keep them alive and well and fed? And also, giving life sentences is an easy way out. Many people argue that giving life sentences is harsher than the death penalty itself, that giving someone a life sentence is harsher than death. Giving a criminal a life sentence is an easy way out. They get to live a life within prison. Most criminals go into prison and commit crimes again against other less harsh criminals. They beat them or they sexually assault them. So how did this happen? How did we end up paying so much for heinous criminals to life than to death? Some factors that led this were the innocent executions that took place back in the 1940s and the 50s of innocent people. In the 1940s and earlier, the justice system was an all-white jury. The justice system was very different back then, and witnesses and defendants didn't get proper representation as needed. Due to this disrepresentation of the clients, people believe that avoiding execution is the best and not sending an innocent man or woman to his or her death. But that's not always the case nowadays. According to the Death Penalty Center, since 2010, California has named only 10 possible innocent prisoners that are currently on death row. In other words, most people condemned to death row are guilty. Leniency on first-time offenders, regardless of the crime, is also another reason why inappropriately light sentences are given out too freely. Jacob Walter Anderson pleaded no contest to repeatedly raping and torturing his victim at a party. He paid a fine and agreed to counseling with no jail time and no registration as a sex offender. This is the kind of leniency that is unjustified, but because he was a first-time offender, he was offered redemption. There's also the lack of trust in the justice system and the authority. The death penalty has been ruled out many times over life sentences due to the unlawful and racism in police officers across the nation. Many people who are faced with the death penalty usually get revoked in terms of unlawful arrest and stereotypes. Although this is true in some cases, the rest of the criminals who deserve the harshest sentence end up getting through the cracks of this flaw in the system. So now that we've learned about the problems created by high life sentences and how they came about, let's get into how the death penalty will help that situation. Although there are different opinions on how to handle criminals that commit heinous and vicious crimes, I feel that they should be sentenced to death. In the course of researching this speech, I came up with the people who suggest a better way to deal with these criminals than just the death penalty. Harsher sentence, harsher prison facility, and harsher prison treatment. My solution for criminals that commit heinous crimes is to give them the death penalty. It's serving those families like mine who have lost a loved one to horrid crimes to feel a sense of justice for those who have lost. In the long run, it's a cheaper alternative than keeping alive evil monsters. It's also safer for our community. It sends a harsh message to other criminals: if you do the crime, you will pay for it. In conclusion, I hope that this speech has alerted you all about the necessity of harsher punishments for these criminals, and hopefully I convinced you all to supporting the death penalty over life sentences. Having criminals on life sentence doesn't reinforce any type of punishment that amounts to the pain that they have caused others. Our society would benefit more from them having hardened criminals gone and put to death. Okay, thank you. And does anybody have any questions?
No.